So all along there was this desire to ensure that local voices could be maintained. And so local communities continued to have the ability to have these local voices with channels.
Welcome back to the third episode of the IP Cafe. I'm Alex Shapiro and here with Desmond Grimes down in our North Carolina office. We have a special show for you here today. We have Richard Turner here from Carroll Media Center.
Yeah, great to be here. Also known formally as the Community Media Center of Carroll County, but that's a mouthful. So CMCC. We get so many C's in these letters around here. So Carroll Media Center works, and that's what our domain name is. So go with it.
So, for the folks that don't know what it is, can you tell us a little bit? What is the Media Center?
Yeah. So the Media Center has its roots in the beginning of cable as a both entertainment information and really, communications commodity in our communities. Back in the 80s, franchising for cable was, they had competing companies coming into communities and wanted to provide all kinds of services, and they included this in their proposals to local municipalities. Could be a county, could be a town. And this was when cable moved out of being just a community antenna television system that retransmitted broadcast to being able to bring in new entertainment services. And of course, we know cable has evolved since then. But part of the agreement that happens when a cable company comes in is that they have to use the public rights of way, right? In order to connect their business, it's connected typically by copper initially. And so to get from their head end, where all of their technology, satellite dishes, whatever else they have running, to your home, they had to use the public property between the street and your house. And to connect that, they had to get permission from local governments. So as part of the give back for using those public rights of way, the communities asked for provisions, or initially the cable companies were offering them. They offered all kinds of stuff. We'll do news, we'll do entertainment, we'll add additional local channels, we'll cover your local government meetings. And at that time, also, there was a movement to ensure that there were public voices that could come from the community, that it wasn't just controlled speech, but that it amplified free speech in our communities, that new technology could provide a voice and a platform for the communities that they never had before. Broadcast brought in signals from all over, whether it be West Coast, East Coast, internationally, but how would local voices be heard in this new medium? And I think the thought then was that cable would become universally adopted, that every home would be connected. That was like the big dream. And so that it would act as a universal level of service. And in some places, they got high levels of penetration in terms of numbers of homes that connected to cable. But over time, that dream wasn't completely realized, and there was consolidation in the industry. So companies started selling out. Comcast became the 800-pound gorilla, basically. Of course, internet and all these other VoIP and all these other services got added over time. They improved their plant from copper to fiber, at least fiber to the community or fiber to the hub, not fiber to the home. And then you started to get some competition with Verizon. So all along there was this desire to ensure that local voices could be maintained. And so local communities continued to have the ability to have these local voices with channels, also support in terms of equipment, and then resources, dollars, franchise fees. So that if there are any cable viewers out there who still have a bill from the cable company, you'll see a little detailed line that might be public education and governmental access. That's what it was originally defined in under the FCC law. And so this is what happened in Carroll County. We had in the early 80s a franchise that was for a company, I think it was Adelphia, might have been the first one, or Prestige, I think. Prestige sold to Adelphia. Adelphia started getting bigger. They had some business problems. They sold out. Comcast bought them out. All along, all these provisions continued to be provided. And here in Carroll County, we're very fortunate that the community felt it was important. We're sort of in the shadow of Baltimore and Washington, D.C., so we're not a prime audience for broadcast. And so we filled that niche, starting really more effectively in 2003. And so here we are today, transforming our technology as we go and being more agile in terms of the kinds of communication when streaming is the dominant way in which people get their information and entertainment.
So I know for me as a kid growing up, it'd be kind of those late nights. It just like how it comes and how I remember it in my mind. It'd be like a summer night, got the air conditioner on in the window, cool, lights off, just watching TV. And I'd flip through, and you guys had, I think, like 3 stations back then, and you'd have the one station that was broadcasting all the time, showing the stuff of kind of what's coming up in this town or what's going on here, and then there was also like a channel playing Board of Ed meetings.
Yep.
Can you talk about, like I said, this is probably going back 15 years or so or more, how things have evolved past that to where you're at now?
Yeah. So, importantly, when you think about broadcast TV, broadcast is a linear format, right? So, and it's on their schedule. So everyone way back got done with dinner, sat down, watched the national news at 7 o'clock all together at the same time. And that aggregated a big audience. So that was the prime driver of broadcast, was the ability to deliver viewers and sell advertising. The more viewers you had, the more successful you were. And local content wasn't part of that mix. It was sort of left out. So local information was important. What goes on in your community was important. But the approach was cover it as it is. Government meetings, if it's a 2-hour meeting, when it started, we started the cameras, we turned them on, we were kind of like fly on the wall coverage. And then no one watched, I don't think, 2 hours of a community meeting, except for maybe those who were really dedicated to it. Maybe they were going to run for office as a local mayor or a local council member. But it wasn't the kind of large audience. It was really narrow casting. And it was really the beginning of sort of the hyper-local that you heard at some point. So we still today feel that's important, is unedited coverage of local events, particularly of local government. We think it's important for people to be able to access their government. There's transparency in government. There's a benefit when the light of day is shed on what goes on in our governing, meetings and process. And the ability to tune in and watch what that decision making is, be able to walk in. We've heard stories of people who were watching it on TV and then march down to the meeting in order to be able to put their 2 cents in, That's kind of a success story. So there's like 3 types of local channels. So there's a public channel, an educational channel, and a government channel, or content. Then from an education perspective is, being able to have access to education, whether what's going on in the schools, whether it's the Board of Ed meeting, or educational opportunities where we're reaching into the home. So like homework hotlines, shows were developed. And then for public, there's like Wayne's World, Between Two Ferns. These are the shows that sort of define, in the major media, define public access, which was the voice of the people. Anybody could come in and produce content. And at that, 15 years ago, people didn't have access to quality cameras, they didn't have access to editing solutions, and they certainly didn't have any way of distributing the content if they did edit something. So the community media centers at that time really had a value proposition or a strength of being able to provide broadcast quality cameras, editing capability, and then be able to play it on a channel. So you'll find typically these are on cable channels, and they're usually defined that some way, in some fashion, right? And that still, to a degree, exists today. But of course, people want content when they want it. Live for us is significantly more important. And rather than being pre-recorded and then played and scheduled at a time of the station's convenience, but consumed when the viewer wants it. They're not always at that time. Time's not always convenient. We know time shifting is an important thing. So the DVR really was sort of like this first shift, was my ability, I'm watching a linear channel. I don't want to watch that linear channel at a time, and my DVR allows me to schedule that time when I want it, record it, and then play it back when I want to see it. So I think that was sort of the initial shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I like that you said there was being able to provide unedited access to government proceedings. Obviously, now in a world that you hear a lot of these buzzwords or terms like fake news or whatever, you always gotta quality check the information that you're getting, whether it be on social media or if you're getting it from, the local TV provider or streaming service or something. It's always got some sort of tie to a political party or an agenda, and
or just a personal filter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we all have personal filters, right? So anybody who's involved in media, even though there is a sort of like a gold standard in journalism of neutrality, right? It's still with some filter. There's an editor who is deciding what's important out of that meeting or what's important out of community. And the question is how much freedom can we give to the viewer to make those choices rather than having it made for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I can appreciate. Rather just get the news, just show me the good, the bad, the ugly, show me everything so that I can make my own personal insight or decision on how I feel about X situation.
Yeah.
And the things that I can appreciate about, the stuff that Carroll Media Center does is, I grew up in a rural community. We'll put that in. It's not rural now, but I grew up in Charlestown, West Virginia, and I used to, like Alex said, middle of the night or in the summer or something like that, I have vivid memories of waking up and watching school, I don't even know, meeting notes, and I'm like, I don't know what the heck this is, but it's good. But the funny thing is you don't seem interested in the beginning. You don't go out and search for it most of the time, unless, like you said, you have a driving interest in it. And then you learn something.
Yeah.
And for me in sales roles now, especially when you're listening to government proceedings, you can learn, different things that are coming down a pipeline and a bill pipeline or whatever, and then you have early insight into something so that you can jump onto whatever, an RFP or whatever, to be able to put a bid in before anyone else even knows about it. And you have inside information, and I can appreciate that.
Well,
but
I just one adjustment there. I wouldn't call it inside information, right? I'd really call it outside information that was never accessible or difficult to find and consume, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that all of these meetings are public. You could have gone down there, but it's not necessarily convenient.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's hard to digest, quite honestly. You're sitting through a lot of agenda items, and you're not knowing when that agenda item is going to be discussed. In fact, the efficiency of government is a challenge in government meetings because they have all these administrative staff that have to report, and they're sitting there waiting for their agenda item. Well, and they could be producing outcomes for our community when they're tied up in a meeting. You have to kind of wonder about that sometimes, right? So couldn't we be more efficient if we were delivering interaction, the requirements for that governance process in a better real-time scenario, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Before we continue down the road of Carroll Media Center, I want to get like a background on you and
Yeah.
see, how did you end up getting to the Carroll Media Center, and what are the places, or how did you get here? How did
Yeah.
you get down to Carroll County?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting journey. In high school, I was always sort of leaning towards tech and photography as a visual medium, and influenced by my dad. I found out later he was like the head of the AV club at high school. He used to bring home gear, and I would figure out how to take it apart and put it back together again before he got home, kind of a thing, right? So it kind of influenced me, I think. And in addition, in my community, which was Long Island, New York, there was a incident in a local neighboring high school. It was defined as a race riot, conflict really between youth that used their identity for polarization to form sides. So it was the quote unquote white kids versus the black kids. And it required someone to come in and mediate that problem because it actually shut down the high school. I couldn't figure out how to continue. My dad was the head of the local NACP. He worked with local community organizers to try and figure out how to mediate the situation. And what they found was that there was a filmmaker whose name was George Stoney. And what he did is he came in and brought one of the first black and white Portapacks. Now, this is back in like the late 60s, right? So this was the first video camera. This is innovation of technology, right? Kind of on our thread. That it was a portable camera where before you had to have like an engineer and a big camera and a big recorder if you were even lucky. And here it was down to the size of something that would fit on your shoulder and had a side, sort of recording device. A Portapack is what they called it. And so he came in and he said, this is a way to try and build communication. So they had rap groups, and the black kids, they had a rap group, and he would give the camera over to the kids, to the youth, and I just happened to be there, and so he allowed them to film their story. He would edit it and then bring the excerpts to the other group, and then he would film their reactions, and then this created technical dialogue through this technology, created dialogue that mediated the situation. I didn't realize how that sort of influenced me in understanding how technology could work for communities to try and address significant problems where we have polarization and don't talk. And so today we talk about, the world is so polarized. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's not that much more polarized than it was before. It's just that some of this polarization is amplified. I mean, they shut down a high school. How much more polarized could you get?
Absolutely.
And this technology was a way to rebuild and understand that the issues were not one another and the color of their skin, but the fact that they didn't have resources, they didn't have jobs, they didn't have recreation, they didn't have programs, they didn't have an understanding of how to convey what was going on in the high school in terms of what was going on in the social context at the time, which was, Martin Luther King being assassinated, or other areas of social change, social strife that was going on. They had no way to really sort of address that, and so they were acting out. And so this was using technology to be able to do that. So roll that forward, my joy in photography and then learning about video and having this experience drew me to community media. I went to school various places. I went to Morgan State for a little while, went to West Coast, worked for broadcast, worked for private production. I was working in news, and found that community media gave me more freedom to actually address community issues than doing news. Because it allowed us to spend whatever time, and it allowed us to amplify the voices that were within the community. So rather than acting as an editor and an interpreter of what was going on in my community as a journalist, I found that I could turn, just as George Stoney turned the cameras over to us, I could turn cameras over to our community and get them to discuss and expose and treat and have some dialogue around the issues that are important and improve the quality of life. And it's really been my passion all along. I've been doing this for obviously more years than I care to say. In various communities from Maryland to the Bay Area of San Francisco, San Diego. Had a fortune to be in Honolulu, Hawaii, start up a statewide effort. Started up actually their state legislative coverage of the Hawaii state legislature.
Wow.
In addition to, again, all these various forms that we do. And again, what brought me here is that we're in the shadow of what is broadcast in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and with newspapers basically going defunct, with very limited coverage and very limited resources, we are now sort of key enablers of more information in our community. So I have transformed that into how do we cover sports? The technology has evolved, obviously. No longer big porta packs. People don't need to come to us for that technology. It's sitting in their pocket on their phone. You can record, you can edit, you can stream live, you can distribute your own programming on YouTube. And so while these technological innovations have shifted what we do, now our focus is on training people. Our focus is on live in terms of enabling content that's out there in our communities live to be able to see what's going on and participate versus being pre-recorded. So that's sort of our new strength. I talk to our staff about having superpowers and how this technology enables us with some level of superpower. Previously, it was the porta pack was the superpower. So what's the superpower that we have now for technology? And that's fiber optic technology that's connecting us in real time. It's the ability to use specialized effects that allow us to augment reality with information. It's the ability to deliver that content where and when it's needed. So those are the things that we're trying to focus on. And so that's a little bit of the journey is in a small capsulation there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I can't help myself because I'm a former athlete. You guys are covering sports now.
Yeah.
What's that like? What's
Well, this was something that was done initially by Prestige in Adelphia. And then what happened with the cable companies is they realized that in order to pay off the debt from consolidation and repurchasing of systems, they had to cut that. They have to cut somewhere. This is true. This is what's happening with papers today. And in order to stay profitable, they backed out of all of these commitments they made to communities. And so nonprofits were established, and that's what the Community Media Center is, a nonprofit that was established to carry on that original intent of having local information and content. And, while government meetings are important because those decisions have direct impact, there's other content that needs to be part of our community experience. And so for me, sports is part of that. I can't think of a greater understanding and representation of community than seeing our youth on the field and competing and then shaking hands at the end of the day, at the end of the game.
And I think, like we talked about this a little bit before, you guys are even taking the sports coverage to a level where you're doing play calling and doing things like you do like a game of the week or
yeah, absolutely. What we know is that helping interpret the game is important, right? It adds to the storytelling of what's happening on the field. Knowing the athletes is important. We were extremely lucky. The downside of losing a very vibrant local newspaper is that those journalists were available for us to hire. We hired two very talented journalists who had long experiences, Pat Stetzer and Bob Blueball. Bob was formerly the sports reporter and sports editor for the Times, and then became their general editor.
That's why his name's so familiar to me.
And then Pat Stetzer was a reporter and then became their sports editor. And so I took a risk because it took a financial commitment in order to hire them, which was not anticipated. I had a board of directors who saw this vision and supported it. And now I'm looking to the community to also support it because it will require sponsorship and underwriting in order to make this happen. So, but it is a great opportunity, and we're seeing the viewers respond. While it's not quite fair to compare it to a government meeting where we'll have 15 to maybe 50 or 100 viewers, depending upon what they're talking about and how vitalized they are about it, energized they are about a particular topic, right? Like the power line discussion right now in Carroll County. Where do we get power from and to, and do we benefit from those power lines or not? That's an important discussion to have. But usually the normal stuff that government talks about, quite honestly, is like watching paint dry.
Yep.
I mean, well, it's kind of important. I mean, like,
Yeah.
is your sewer line working? Is your water line working? Well, that day-to-day doesn't draw a lot of viewers until it's really important.
Yeah, hence why Alec and I were watching it at night and going to sleep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you having a little time going to sleep. You could tune into those government meetings. That might do it. Non-habit forming. All right.
I'll be honest.
Not
Like,
for me.
I would tune into like graduation and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, because you guys always broadcast like all the high school's graduations. And like when I was still in school, because I played for graduation and band for every year being in high school, I'm like, I got to hear what that sounds like and stuff. Because you guys were recording. And it's like,
I knew that's what was wrong with you. You were a band kid,
Yeah.
man.
I was a silent band kid.
Well,
But
yeah, graduation is 15. Watching multiple times someone's 15 seconds of fame, right?
Oh yeah.
But it is a community celebration, and that's why we do sports, right? It is a community celebration, and so let's on the technical side of things, that's a real challenge. We are attempting to go out to fields that have no connectivity to them whatsoever. You who are involved in tech know that in order to push a decent video signal, you have to have really at minimum 3 megabits per second quality, consistent streaming capability. And for high def, really you're probably needing to push somewhere around 6 to 8 megabits per second. We're going out into communities that have one cell tower that barely have sufficient strength, so typically under 5 megabits per second, trying to use bonded cellular to get maybe double the strength of that, and live stream a game with multiple cameras, and sometimes it's single cameras. And so every time it feels like a new situation, even though we've been to a field before. Because the way cellular technology works, you're just not sure what amount of bandwidth you're going to have when you get there. So yeah, we took a couple different approaches. One is to send a single camera out and just record and stream that, and then going all the way up to, like you mentioned, a full game of the week coverage where our staff is selecting which they think is a pretty competitive contest, and being able to stream that.
so with that, like going into these communities, these places to film all this, like when did you guys really start doing that?
So we really started streaming before I started with the organization in 2016. We were streaming content out. First, they were streaming the channels because, as we know, people were cutting the cord, right? Or they were cord nevers now, even more increasingly, under which they're not subscribing to cable. Cable has a tendency to shoot itself in the foot, raising rates every year and not necessarily bringing any new value to that product. There is ineffective competition, and so there are cost inefficiencies, or I should say consumer inefficiencies from the consumer standpoint. I don't have a competitor to cable really that I can go to and get the same package. And so when streaming was introduced, streaming really provided a competitive edge. New shiny thing. I get to choose things rather than having packages sold to me or shoved down my throat by the cable company. And but I still needed an internet connection in order to get the stream to happen, right? And in a lot of our communities, as I mentioned, that streaming is a challenging proposition. We basically wanted to try and enable this single camera streams in the beginning. We send a single camera out, stream that back. Then we started taking clips from those games and pushing out social media clips from that. So we have technology that's like an instant replay system that allows us to select the highlights, because we know someone may not want to watch the whole game, but they want to watch the great plays, right? And so then when we got the staff to essentially do the editorial side, it allowed us to move into the game of the week, athlete of the week, profile highlights, things of that nature, and really step up the coverage.
And so it's interesting you mentioned that, because that was all stuff that used to be done by the newspaper.
Yeah.
And because I remember reading about that in school, and I don't know if they still do it, because you have to subscribe online or something. You don't just really get it at your house anymore. But I find that interesting how you're able to kind of, like you said, bring that along.
Yeah. Technology, the change in technology is something that you can tell from my background, that was something that drove me, right? So I'm always looking for a new technological solution to bring this content to bear, bring it to our community. So when streaming, obviously, there's a tipping point where there were more video streams. I think it was 2018, 17 maybe, where there were more video starts on a mobile phone than on any other device. So that was really the tipping point when it was clear that that was the way to reach our community. And so we shifted really from thinking about being video as a channel, linear format first, and then moving towards what is a streaming first solution, digital media solution. That required us to rethink about what happens in our building, from going from analog signal to digital signals to having a tech core that rivals a network operating system, a small network operating center. And so we had to change the relationship in terms of what we thought about how much content is coming into our building and how much content is going out. Previously, we'd take all of that content and try to serialize it down into one stream, a channel. Mm-hmm. And now it's like we have to be on Facebook, we have to be on YouTube, we have to have shorts on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as the channel. Right? So we're having to figure out how to serve multiple audiences now. So now we change from a many-to-one relationship to a many-to-many relationship. And it changed the complete nature of how we have to try and engineer both on the streaming side of things as well as on the traditional video side of things, which we still have as a core of our plant. So bandwidth in, bandwidth out, critical, right? Because we need to be able to get these various live signals from our community centers, which are town hall meeting places or meeting rooms, as well as from baseball fields, football fields, soccer fields, in which there's no hardline connectivity. And having those signals come in, being able to process them, augment them, add data to them, add announcers to them. So we adopted what they call a REMI style of production, which really, I don't know that it's an acronym. Somewhere maybe somebody must have thought it was an acronym. Remote, something engineered, mobile, I don't know, interface? I don't know.
That could be it.
But it allows us to essentially, instead of having a truck, a broadcast truck where we roll out cables and cameras and produce everything in that truck and then send a single stream, we're looking to have in locations multiple camera streams being returned from that location into our core plant, so we can then process those multiple streams at our core plant. So we now, for example, when we do our wrestling tournament at Westminster High School, we actually send 4 camera streams back from Westminster High School back to our facility. And then we are, usually there's 2 contests, 2 mats going on simultaneously. So we're giving our viewers a selected stream. They can go to either mat. We have to augment that stream with who's the wrestler, so the parent can find where's my wrestler, who's on deck. So we have to have data streams from the data solution, that's the scoring solution, coming into our facility, render those as graphics. And then, that's the augmentation. And then our talent is actually in our studio on a green screen. And so we create a virtual environment under which they can select, we want to go now to the other mat. We've done this with football when we have limited ability with licensing when they're in playoffs. So we send multiple cameras out to multiple fields. They all come back in, and then we will replay them not in real time, but as a replay. So it's kind of like quasi NFL red zone, so that we can then have the best competition of those what's going on in the fields come in. But it's technology that enables this.
Right. And it sounds like it's a ton of work for you guys to spin this up. I mean, you can hear your passion and how you got into this, but how do you continue to motivate your team to want to continue to do this for the community and serve their community?
Yeah, it's it's an educational opportunity first, right? So that when staff comes in, they're thinking about a career in television broadcast or television video of some kind. Some are thinking about sports as a career. So we're working with that initial kernel of interest and passion for the art, for the craft. And we're giving them, most of the folks who we hire for our production crew are part-time. They're usually coming right out of school, but not always. As well as there are some people who are just sort of dedicated volunteers who come in and really are interested in helping us. Then really giving them the vision. It's about painting an understanding of why this vitality in our community, being able to celebrate community, but also at the same time being able to communicate other issues. So like at halftime, we've got 15 minutes. So we can be running public service announcements about what's going on in the towns, et cetera, and starting to give more news-like information during that time. So that's where we'd like to be able to go with the support from the community as we lose funding from cable cord cutting, being able to replace that with sponsorships and perhaps even subscription model, being able to have people pay some portion of that, replacing those franchise fees. And that will enable us to bring more information into that presentation as well. So I think staff gets that. Our sponsors definitely get that. The one great story is that we were at Winters Mill High School, local, probably second, maybe third largest in our community.
Nowadays.
Yeah, and good competition. It was going on between two local high schools. And one of our sponsors was in the stands, and of course we're streaming this, and we have replay capabilities from the view from the field. And sponsor came over to me and said, "Hey, there's a couple guys out in front of me, and they're watching your replays in order to figure out, hey, what happened? Was that really inbounds, or was that really a catch?" So that was the ultimate for me, was the ability to know that we were enhancing the game in the stands, not replacing. Not hurting the gate, right? But also extending that out to the grandparents or anybody else in the community who could see that. Is that our technology, even though it was on YouTube, so it was a little bit delayed, but they were watching it on their phone in the stands.
So it's funny you bring that up, because I've actually had people from the fair bring that back up too. So they've gone ahead and said, like, when we pay out the premiums for how much kids get for what they placed.
Yeah.
They contest, and they're like, "No, I really got this place. I should get paid this much." And we get a lot of that from people.
Are they bringing video clips? Let me replay this for you.
So what I do is, like, I hold on to all the physical results, because it's possible that someone entered it wrong in the system.
Yeah.
So I go back to what the judge signs off on, and I look at this, and they're like, "Now, from what I see, this is really, you got the proper placing, proper payout." And they're like, "Well, I went on YouTube and I watched from the live stream of it and was able to see that my child was handed this ribbon or this." And they're utilizing that.
They're throwing the replay flag down.
Right. Exactly. And I'm like, what do you do at that point? So.
Well, I do have to talk a little bit about the background of that story of the 4-H fair to give people context who are listening. The fair is something that goes on for 7 straight days, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all along when I first started, the first time we started, we were doing 3-4G. I went out and did a little live segment You can still see that on YouTube back in 2017. We were sort of like promoting what was coming up at the fair. And then we moved towards, stream the whole thing. So we are there basically for all of the major events from 9 o'clock in the morning till whenever at night, 10, 11 o'clock, bunch of hard-working people who are putting this on. The kids are amazing, showing their animals. And this is really an important part of Carroll County experience. And so it was quite a pleasure and an honor to be part of being able to present this to the broader community. And so because we had the kinds of connectivity, specifically at InfoPathways, enabled for us in Shipley Arena, which is a large arena, we mounted remote pan-tilt zoom, these remote robotic cameras up on steel. And so initially we were like, we wanted to, figure out how to use this REMI style production, this remote production, which is, kind of a way of moving bits instead of moving atoms, right? So instead of bringing people and cameras to the production truck, right, to Shipley Arena, we use bits to bring it to us. So by getting these digital streams via fiber, we were able to have these remote feeds. We had 4 cameras mounted up on steel. We can do a pretty wide coverage of the arena as a result. And then I guess it was 2 years ago, there was a desire to say, we want a little closer action, in on the action. So we experimented again with the support of InfoPathways. All right, can we get a GoPro camera, like these little small, it went.
I don't know what was up with that.
Oh, you know
We
what?
should have a blooper reel.
Do you have the hand you can do some of the new GoPro cameras. If you have hand signals,
Yeah, it must be. It's
you can.
What is happening?
You can tell it to start and stop with hand signals. The GoPro,
so nobody else. Nobody else.
right? So I can tell it. This is how you can remotely trigger your GoPro, is through hand signals.
I did not know that.
All right, so that's probably turned on this.
Richard's the first person to come in here and start talking sign language to the camera and get it to do stuff.
Well, anyway, we strapped a GoPro on one of the judges, and we had the judge view, and we had Wi-Fi connectivity, and it worked part of the time, but not most of the time, only because it's a GoPro camera. It was overheating. GoPro cameras are designed, I think, to basically record that one surfing moment, skateboarding moment. It doesn't do well when it's continuously operating, and especially in the Shipley Arena, it was warm. They were overheating. So we exceeded the capacity or the requirements of their design. This past year, we actually had wireless cameras with an operator in the ring, so that we could have that close-up look, and having the effectiveness of that in terms of telling the story was just great. It is one of the great productions I think we do that really reflects not only what goes in our community and the kind of passion that people have for agriculture and for what we do with husbandry in our community, but also technical innovation. Here we were using fiber to live stream almost continuously for 60 hours and significant viewing, because this was an opportunity for parents and grandparents to see their kids showing the animals during the daytime when they couldn't get to the fair. But as you say, I think the kids themselves were telling us that they were evaluating themselves. They were watching themselves on video to see how they could improve, how could they do better in states. So there was many kinds of impacts and outcomes as a result.
And we even have so many people watching, I mean, not just at that level, but people from other states across the country.
Globe. We had people in England talking about whether or not that was a good pig or not. I think well, we could tell from the comments. So yeah.
So with that being said, I mean, from where things have started, like when you first got into this industry and working with all of this, to where we are now, what do you think is the biggest, wouldn't say advancement, but the most important thing that has brought us to where we are with what you guys are doing now?
Yeah. I would say that it's really, when we talk about digital media enabled through compression, right? The ability to fit a video signal through 4G. I'm just amazed it works, period, right? So that just opens up so many opportunities for us to bring content as it happens in our community, as well as the processing of that, right? So our ability to process these video signals in terms of technology, being able to have recall. We're currently working on the development of a new website, and it is taking, basically it's integrating various platforms so that we can increase the search engine optimization so that people can find that content and find the specific content within a long linear format. So if we have a governmental meeting, for example, how can we increase the metadata that goes along with that video compression to be able to find and search for, I want to find out what's going on in the corner. I see a sign for zoning in my corner, and I don't know what its impact is. I see the sign, but I don't know what that really means. And then when the decision is made, people are like, well, how did that happen? When was I notified? Right? Mm-hmm. And then out comes sometimes I say the pitchforks and the torches, and I was like, not in my backyard. When they had an opportunity really to address this earlier on in the process, to become educated about its impact. And that can help in the dialogue, right? So to be more geolocated, I think, is one of the key enablers as we go forward, so that the content that we have, the metadata for a piece of video asset, is just as critical as the audio and video that's recorded at the time. So our ability to marry metadata, use search engine optimization, geolocation, my greatest ideal, in addition to the joy of seeing a fan, seeing our streams in the stands, is to know that we have critical issues in our community on Main Street. Substance use disorder, as an example, that impacts economic development. I hear the businesses who are on Main Street going like, hey, this is really a problem for us. How do we address this? Knowing that we have part of that solution of information, and if we can deliver that information in just the right time, in just the right place, that makes a difference and an impact, then I know we're really serving community.
So would you say that probably, like we talked about, like people cutting the cable and you're losing funding from that, but with the advent of the streaming aspect, it's really taking the ability for you to reach more people now than what you were prior? Because you're still putting out on the cable TV channels and stuff.
Absolutely. Streaming has enabled us to reach audiences that we would not have reached before on cable. A, because they were tethered. And B, because now we have the capability with the digital media delivery systems to make that audience aware that we exist, which before required so much marketing dollars that we didn't have. We were never able to penetrate. We were never able to get the awareness in our viewers, from our viewers' standpoint, because we didn't have the marketing dollars. We're a nonprofit. We have a staff of full-time of 9, a full-time equivalent of about 12.5 staffers, compared to a broadcast operation, which is probably 60 to 120, compared to a network, which is thousands. And so I have to compete in content with Super Bowl, a Super Bowl commercial that is cost like what, $7.5 million for 30
Some
seconds.
odd $1 million.
Yeah. Right. My budget is a seventh of that for the entire year and for all of our production and programming. Right. So I have to compete effectively, be creative, innovative in terms of the use of those technologies, draw those folks in, know that there's value in local content, and that there's important messaging. So I think that's a formula that is ripe for support in our communities. It's a changing financial model. So I am enthusiastic and optimistic about the future. but also realize that it will require new kinds of learning and new kinds of commitment.
So what do you think is next then?
Uh,
Like where do you go from here?
Yeah, from here, so the importance is increasing our level of funding. It's important to have the community out there understand what we bring and support it. If it's just what it was in the past, Wayne's World, it's not likely to generate the kind of support. So we have to understand what the community wants, and we have to appeal to the viewer while at the same time balancing that with both a concept of freedom of speech, empowering people to speak in our community, transparency in government, as well as an entertainment value like sports that's got a little bit more than just entertainment, right? It's got a real social feel to it, a real heart feel to it. And it's continuing to build on that, right? And listening to our community, knowing where the needs are, and going forward, it's finding these new technological solutions that really makes our content pop out, whether it's enhancement with data, whether it's making it effective in the way people find our content, whether it's enhancing it visually, special effects, using Unreal Engine, for example, as a virtual environment, but in an augmented way, so that through our special effects technology and our green screen technologies, we can create an Unreal Engine game-like experience, but that has effective information, important information in our community.
And I guess with that, the way that the technology has progressed for you guys, it's not just so much in the fact that you've got fiber that you're utilizing to move this traffic, or that obviously cameras have improved over time, but also this kind of marketing aspect that you have to tap into now, whereas before, it was what it was.
It was what it was. It was, you put it out there and it didn't have to worry about the consumer adoption, I'll say, right? Because the public benefit model took care of it 100%. Franchise fees were going to come regardless of the number of viewers. Now we have to be more aware of what the public wants. We have to educate the public why that's important at the same time. Not everyone's going to go home and be waiting to watch the local Tawny Town. Well, maybe they do want to watch the Tawny Town meeting. I don't know. Some of them get a little entertaining every once in a while. But the importance of those decisions that are being made impact our daily lives. And when people are commuting, we have 70% of our commuting time spent in commuting time out of the community. I'm not sure exactly. I thought I heard that number at some point. That's a lot of time that people are on the road. When they get back, they're trying to get the kids from A to B and C and all the after-school activities, nighttime, et cetera. We know we have to be very capable of meeting their requirements, right? Because they don't have all day, all night to watch television.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you mentioned about needing the support and stuff. Like if somebody wants to, support you guys or
Yes.
help out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is come to our website. It's carrollmediacenter.org. That's a great entree point. You have points of contact on there for businesses who are interested in sponsoring, or for others who are interested in getting more information about us, wanting to create content, know volunteers who can help us. So funding, volunteers, new ideas. We have a lot of new ideas, but anything that really makes us vital in our community. Just last night, for example, Kiwanis had an event at Exploration Commons in the library. And their need was to outreach into the community and make people aware of the challenges that they experience with youth and the key clubs, and wanting to expand that impact in our communities. And that's what they had a panel that was discussing that. And we covered that. Right? So there are lots of opportunities in our community that we want to be plugged into, and support for that, again, whether it's dollars, donations, support from businesses as sponsors, underwriters that help us create that programming, like our new sports talk at Island Green. Those are all opportunities for our community to support us.
So what is that sports talk.
Oh yeah, so here Island Green wanted to be able to profile McDaniel. McDaniel wanted greater exposure for their coaches, so
I'm a Hood College guy, so
oh,
not
well,
vehemently against McDaniel, but
we had an opportunity to work with Island Green, Westminster, that wanted to use their venue as a production site. And so they help to underwrite and cover the costs of production. And the coaches come in from McDaniel, and they're also talking about some of the school sports. But it's a Coach's Corner talk show. And so we produce that every Monday nights currently, all the way through December at this point.
And you're doing it live from
It
there.
is live, yeah. It is live from Island Green.
So obviously in that situation, you don't have fiber or anything there. So you're just utilizing cell for that? Or?
Actually, it's Comcast. It's their Comcast.
Okay.
We were using that as a return path.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not even really good cell service out there. So Comcast, in this case, their internet connection is really the only way to get out. And fingers crossed, all the time it works. Sometimes it's not. We had that technical difficulty slide up a couple times in the last couple of weeks. But of course, we record it and then we also replay it as well. It's available on YouTube. We update all of those: YouTube, Facebook, as well as repeats on the channel. So channels 1072 for those who are in the local Carroll community that have Comcast can see it on HD channels 1072 on Comcast.
Desmond can sit there and stream that.
There you go.
yeah, and go on YouTube, or where can I find it on streaming services?
Yeah, so we have a YouTube site. Search us on YouTube, Carroll Media Center, and as well as Facebook, and then Instagram as well. Those are our most active.
Okay.
Nice.
Do you have
All right,
any
I'll check
other?
it out.
You going to be jealous because you don't have that for Hood?
Oh, I'm just gonna get some inside information from McDaniel. You know, if their baseball team gets on there, I can ship it off to the new head coach at Hood College.
Oh, my goodness.
He's giving away the keys, man. Here you go.
You know, at some point, it's like, you know, maybe because like I went to a college that I just didn't care that much about. You know, I'm not worried
Hey,
about
man.
any of that stuff now. You're like,
The reason why I'm coming
In
back
it.
to Maryland, it's alumni weekend, man.
There you
Ah.
go. There you go.
so, do you guys have anything else big that you're working on right now?
So, you know, every day is a new challenge with technology. Mostly what we do is find new ways to use this technology. So what we learned from just the other night, as we mentioned, being televising Kiwanis from our Exploration Commons, which is our, it's a center in one of our libraries. And we had learned how to use some digital technology, but didn't consistently apply it. And so now we are trying to take that digital technology protocols that are NDI, for example, which is a very good protocol, low latency for delivering video signals. And instead of using the digital component of a video signal, SDI, which is used typically in broadcast, was like we could be reducing the number of cables in our setup by about 2/3 by going completely digital. Dante is a newer digital audio format. It's no longer cutting edge. It's pretty routine to find Dante as an audio protocol for transport of audio signals. We have Dante audio encoders and decoders, but we were ready to bring out an analog audio snake, and I was like, wait a minute, we've already done this. So we did it for a game of the week where we needed to get signals from a cargo van. That's our broadcast truck. Is we have a cargo van and we put a table in and a couple chairs and run cables out the back, doors open, and then run them up to the press box in order to get cameras and our audio feeds up in and out of the press box. And we reduced that down to a single Cat6 cable, or actually two Cat6 cables. And so, again, we had to apply that technology in a smaller setting so that, again, we can economize, become more efficient, and improve the quality of the signal at the same time. So those are the kinds of improvements that we're currently making. This all feels pretty much internal in terms of the production process. Externally, I think the next things for us in terms of what viewers will experience is trying to get some of the content that we already exist in a more digestible format, meaning it's something that if you're watching, you wouldn't watch 2 hours of a government meeting, but there's something that might be important to you. How do you get the digest of that? In a way that's neutral, that's not filtered, that's not biased, it's not somebody's reaction, with various emoticons, but is driven by, oh, this is something that's important for the community. Here's your opportunity to step on, and get involved with it, and become aware of what's going to happen in your community. And I think that's probably the next major step for us. We branded our sports effort CM Sportsnet. We think that's going to continue. We hope again, I'm optimistic about the kind of support that we'll be getting. And in addition, what I see a subscription model for that to help support that, so that we can expand the amount of content that we have coming from all of the fields in Carroll County, and beginning to expand that a little bit out to our neighboring communities as Carroll County teams play outside of the county. So I see that. With this new website, being able to deliver content in a way that people can subscribe to it, I can envision a Central Maryland, so CM Sportsnet is Central Maryland Sports Network. I see one for civics, so I would see a Central Maryland Civic Network, under which we see more about civic engagement. How do I get involved in my community?
I think that's awesome, and I think it's a great way to connect the community. And I think what you're doing from just an audio and a visual standpoint for the community and connecting it that way is awesome, especially like you said with the decline of newspapers, anything coming out from there and written materials. Being able to see it live on your screen, I think is unbelievable, and it's awesome. And I think it's a great way to connect the community for sure.
Awesome, and again, I'll plug for InfoPathways. I mean, it's really, I appreciate this organization, this business, who supports us when we need advice about how to do certain kinds of implementation, when we overlap in areas where you're supporting organizations in the community or businesses in the community, and we can tap in and get a better feed as a result. Our coverage of the Memorial Day Parade, this is the one of the longest running, I think it's 155th year or something like coming up next year, where we've got cameras out on Main Street and need to get that feedback. It's through our local arts center that allows us to establish a control room, and getting that proper feed with InfoPathways helping them helps us, and that's an incredible asset. So we are very appreciative of not only the technical support, but the community support that InfoPathways gives back to our community.
Yeah, and I know that it's a lot. It's a lot of new stuff. I mean, for me personally, learning how much technical this has come. So for us to be able to help bridge that gap and all, it's really enjoyable to kind of learn, just because I've always kind of, like, obviously what we're doing right now, I've always liked this stuff to a degree. So being able to help out where possible, I know we enjoy doing that. Desmond, you kind of let the cat out of the bag. You're coming up.
When did I say that?
Because you
I
said
said
it's
I was going to
alumni
alumni
week.
weekend. I didn't say I was coming in person, man.
Okay, so, but you are coming here this week to spend some time up here. What's the reason behind that?
Well, like I said, the first reason, alumni game for her college. I love to give my school a little plug. And then I'm just coming up to visit. And I guess, we're going to cut a podcast when I'm up there in person. So I'm really excited about that, and got some work that we're going to do. And then we have a couple events that we're going to this week.
Yeah. What is what's it? Bio innovation. We have on
Thursday.
Yeah. The 17th. No, not
So,
the
yeah,
17th. I'm a week ahead. It's the 10th.
The 11th or 10th.
Yeah,
I'll
October
be up there
10th.
for bio innovation, and
Maryland Tech Council Bio Innovation. Yeah, so
it's a
we'll
big day.
be there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I'm really excited to come back up there and say hi to everyone in the office, and Yeah, Richard, thank you for the kind words about InfoPathways. I'm Tom and Teresa might not like me speaking for them, but I know they make it a very big point to give back to the community as much as they can. And that's one of the goals of InfoPathways is to make sure that not just our clients across the U.S. now, but the people that helped us grow in Carroll County are also being taken care of as well, same level of service, and we're able to get back to the community. So I appreciate that, and I know everyone up there appreciates that. So I know I'm excited about coming up to Maryland and see what's going on. And yeah, Richard, if I get a chance, I'll come by and say hi.
Absolutely, you should come by, and we'll give you the quick tour of the facility so you get an idea of what's in the background there, right?
That could be an espresso shot right there. Desmond's tour.
Carroll Media Center. Hey, I might. I mean, as an athlete, I used to love going back and like watching the videos of me being really bad at what I do or really good at what I do. So if I could see, that would be awesome. And how it's supporting athletes there in Carroll County, I think that would be awesome. I'd love to.
Awesome.
Let's schedule it. I'll put it on your calendar. I'll send you an invite.
Very good. Sounds good. That sounds awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate it. I know Alec appreciates it, and thanks for joining us on the IP Cafe.
Indeed, my pleasure.
Thanks.